And now for an award, not based just on last year's performance, but on a lifetime of involvement in Victorian sport. It's the Outstanding Contribution to Sport Award. It's an award that recognises an individual of outstanding ability whose achievement in or contribution to Victorian sport has been unique. Now, most of us as kids, sometimes probably in our quiet moments, still dream of being world champions in the sport that we love, but only a very few amongst us are able to do the work, make the sacrifices, and have the talent and the drive and the resilience to get there. Cadel Evans is one such person. Many of us would have spent long nights in 2011 up glued to our television screens as he chased the Schleck brothers up and down the French countryside in pursuit of the yellow jersey, and ultimately a very famous victory which achieved iconic status in this country, the first Australian to win the Tour de France. Prior to that, in 2009, he won the World Road Race Champion. He was the World Road Race Champion, the world champion. He got to wear that famous the famous rainbow jersey, which cyclists covet, and announced himself as a road cyclist of renown. 10 years before that, though, Cadel was riding mountain bikes and winning the Bike World Cup in 1998 and 1999. He has been a giant of his sports who's conducted himself with integrity and with the sort of strength of character that sports people from across the sectors could admire. And he's bringing it all back home as well with his Great Ocean Road Race, which has now become one of the great grand fondos, as I say, great one-day events on the Australian sporting calendar, and attracts riders of all levels. That's the beauty of this particular event. You could be just trundling on your bike, or you could be a serious rider, but you get to be involved, and Cadel is giving back to his local community. He couldn't be with us this evening. However, we are delighted to have his mum with us this evening, Helen Cocks, and I would like to welcome her up on stage to receive, on Cadel's behalf, the Outstanding Contribution to Sport, Cadel Evans. Let's have a look. Helen's going to join us in a moment after she has a photo with the Minister. But before we do, we couldn't miss the opportunity to relive those golden moments from 2011 and a few other great moments from Cadel's career as well. Let's get back on the bike with the great man.
To have the yellow jersey in Paris that's the holy grail of cycling, and it's fulfilled many dreams, put it that way.
Cadel Evans.
2006 Cyclist of the Year, Cadel Evans.
Cadel Evans here has gone down.
Now, one thing about Cadel Evans is he's an absolute fighter. And tomorrow morning, Cadel Evans will wake up as a world champion. An outstanding result for the man from Barwon Heads in Victoria.
The best form of defence for Cadel Evans is attack.
And all of the riders who are thinking of winning the Tour de France are locking horns here in the last mile of the day. Cadel Evans has had a tremendous day.
Good job.
This is the top of the Galibier here as they go up into the cloud line where the race ends for the day. The highest ever finish in the Tour de France. Now, Andy Schleck has lifted the ante. This is his bid for victory now. Cadel Evans is leading the charge. He has got to do it all for himself now.
This is what it takes to be a champion at the Tour de France. When you come down to crunch time, you don't need anybody else with you. You have to do it yourself.
Cadel Evans of Australia makes history today, but he's won the Tour de France. Cadel Evans, the first Australian to win the Tour de France, and they're all over him.
Cadel has worn the yellow jersey in previous tours, but to wear it on the final day, that's what he's always wanted. That's what he's dreamed about for many, many years.
What a ride it has been and continues to be, Helen. Come on up. So great to have you here. When you watch that, how does that make you feel these days?
I still, I get really emotional. Yeah, you sort of don't get over it. It's just an incredible, an amazing effort.
When did you realise that Cadel had serious talent as a bike rider? When did he start sort of racing and you think, oh, hang on a sec, this young kid's got something?
I think, look, it was very, very early. He started and did a mountain bike race with a friend and enjoyed it, and went off. There was a bike race up at Kinglake, and he rode up there to go and ride this race, and he came back and I said, how'd you go? And he said, oh, I won. And that just continued. Continued for a long time.
And mountain bike riding was his original passion,
Yeah,
wasn't it?
yeah,
He
yeah.
loved it, didn't he?
Yeah,
He was good
yeah.
at it.
Yeah. Well, actually, he's training to do a mountain bike race in Morocco next week, I think.
He hasn't stopped.
He hasn't stopped.
He's never going to stop, is he? Let's have a quick meeting now with one of his early coaches, Damien Grundy. He was a long-time coach of Cadel's when he was starting out on mountain bikes.
Cadel, congratulations on your award tonight. Who would have thought all those years ago, starting out as a coach and an athlete, a young guy who wanted to win some bike races, where the journey was going to take you? I'm incredibly proud of your achievements, and I'm incredibly proud of the contribution that you're making back into cycling since you've retired. Keep up the good work. Thanks.
Thank you, Damien. I think we owe you an apology for stretching you like you were in one of those fun houses with the funny mirrors, but there he is there. So when he was out there riding in the mountain biking, when did he get the idea that, well, actually I'm going to switch over and get on the road bikes and give that a go, Helen?
Well, he always did both. He trained for training purposes. There's the time when he was doing the Tour of Tasmania, and it was just training really. And he won up Mount Wellington, and it was a Tour of Tasmania. I think it's a 5-day race. Could be longer. I could have forgotten. And it was just one of those moments when you sort of realise that it was actually going to be one day he would make the transition. And of course, the first he was a stagiaire with Seiko for a while, and then started riding with Mapai, and did his first Grand Tour was the Giro, and actually wore the pink jersey during the Giro, which was the first time an Australian had ever worn the pink jersey. So that was pretty phenomenal. He finished 14th. It was a great result.
In his first one, it is extraordinary. How did you used to watch those races? Because obviously they happen overnight and you can't always be there. So would you go to bed going, oh, I hope he's going to be okay on the bike today, and wake up and then, videotape it? What was your way of keeping up with how Cadel was going back then?
I used to stay up. I think the first tour I actually tried keeping on working through it, but after that I just gave up and took the month off.
You would sit there and just watch.
Yeah.
Which is fair enough, I guess, too. And we all remember 2011, and we saw the footage there. But he had a couple of close shaves. I think it was the year before he came. He had a couple of seconds, didn't he? And one was involving, he rode injured. I think he'd fallen off his bike in the second stage. And was it a collarbone that he broke? Or
I think that was the fifth collarbone.
Yeah.
But he also did, I think the year he rode with, 2010, he rode that with a broken arm. He cracked his elbow.
He went the whole tour. What drives him to do that? What can you give us a sense of how he gets through a race like that?
He's very competitive.
Kind of helps.
He did. He rang me up the other day. He's taken up running because it's hard to keep fit when you're working and stuff, and your fitness is no longer your job. But so he's taken up running, but he's also taken up snow running. So he did his first snow running race.
Who knew there was such a thing?
And you do it in the dark. It's really weird. He was so disappointed that he only came ninth. It was just...
First race. He'll be winning it within 6 months, I'm sure. Let's hear from Jane Den Hollander from Deakin University. She's the Vice-Chancellor there, because one of the things that Cadel has done, both with his Great Ocean bike race and elsewhere, is he's been very supportive and quite insistent that women's cycling gets the same status in his event, to try to lift the profile and give opportunity to a growing phalanx of great female riders. And I think it's been recognised by Deakin Uni.
I am delighted to congratulate Cadel Evans on being the 2017 recipient of the Outstanding Contribution to Sport Award. What a worthy recipient, a humble and generous man who reached the pinnacle of his profession. Deakin is a strong supporter of women in sport, and the Cadel Evans Deakin Elite Women's Road Race has been a massive boost for women's cycling, a showcase of just how far women's cycling has come. Bravo, Cadel. Thanks to you, women's cycling is getting the attention it deserves, providing role models for so many young women and girls. Deakin University is very proud to be a sponsor of the Women's Road Race and a friend of Cadel Evans.
So still giving to the sport, even though he's not competing at the highest level anymore. But he did compete at the highest level, and he won the 2011 Tour de France. And well, I'm a bit obsessed with it, so I won't go into too much detail. I love that tour so much. But that the third last stage that we see, where he goes up Du Galibier, and Andy Schleck is the Belgian rider who goes off the front. And at that point, Cadel was defending about 79 seconds or something, or maybe a little bit more, but not a lot in the tour. And Schleck was trying to reel him in because he thought he could get him in the time trial, and Cadel had to go. That was his moment of greatness, wasn't it? He had to go on his own and climb, and he just did enough. He wheeled him into enough to give him that margin in the time trial, which we saw in the back end of that clip where he goes off and rides to victory. What was it like for you watching that? Because at this point, you would have known the nuances of cycling really well. When Schleck went, you must have thought, oh, come on, Cadel. What was that like?
You did spend the whole, 3 weeks basically going, come on, Cadel. But I think that particular stage, it was just such an incredible expression of everything that sport means. It's just the drive that somebody has to just put everything out like that, to take a huge risk. Like, that's an incredible risk to take off, like, to do that, to climb that particular mountain in that particular way. But also just watching it, it really makes you think of how incredible people are and what people can achieve when they really lay themselves down on the line. I just find it really inspirational still,
Yes, so do
What
I.
is it, not 7 years later, it's still just incredible to see.
It's incredible to see, and it's amazing to see because, it wasn't in 1981 or 82 that Phil Anderson was the first Australian to actually win a stage of the Tour de France, and we couldn't have imagined back then that we were going to have a Tour winner who was going to win the general classification. Phil Anderson is a hero of Cadel's, and he had this message for Cadel and for everyone here tonight.
Good evening, I'm Phil Anderson. I hope everybody's having a wonderful night tonight. Listen, I'd just like to congratulate Cadel Evans for receiving his Outstanding Contribution to Sport Award. I wish I was there with you all. I wish Cadel was there. What a career he's had. Tour de France, world champion, a stellar career of mountain biking before that. Congratulations, Cadel, and have a great night.
There he is, the great Phil Anderson. Looked like he's on a swing in a park there, having a bit of a rest in between rides, but I think he's entitled. It's good to see him back on the bike, because I know he had a big accident last year, so it's great to see him healthy and riding. Okay, You weren't there at the Champs-Élysées.
No.
Where were you? Where were you, Mum?
I was at home on the couch. We have this, it's a bit silly, but we sort of have this thing, like we always, a bit about, if I go there, it's sort of like tempting the gods or something.
So you're considered to be like, it's like
yeah,
the
like
unlucky
a-
charm. That can't be the case, Helen. No way. So how did you must have wanted to be there.
Oh yeah. But every time, like the first time he rode in the tour, we made big plans. We even studied French. We booked our things. We did, and he broke his collarbone.
Not your fault.
But it just sort of seemed like it. It just sort of seemed like we.
Well, it worked. He won.
Yeah, so that's okay.
And how's that changed his life and yours?
For him, I mean, it's been a massive change. He's been able to achieve what you always wanted to achieve. Is I think must feel extraordinary. And I certainly wouldn't be standing on stages talking to people if he hadn't. So yes, it's also means he's based in Europe, and so I don't particularly like that, but
That's where he is. Which country is he living?
Switzerland.
So I can climb in the snow and go for a run.
Yeah.
He has sent us a message though. Let's have a look.
Good evening, everybody, and thank you very much. Thank you for. I'm honoured to be awarded for my contributions that I gave to my sport. I feel that my sport has given me a lot. I put a lot into the sport, but of course, like most sports, like most facets of life, the more you put into something, the more it gives you back. And sport and cycling in general has been fantastic for me in that regard. From when I was, of course, a practicing athlete to a professional athlete, and now away from the sport, but whether it's through working with young athletes, older athletes, elite level athletes with the Great Ocean Road Race, and beyond the race, it's still a sport that that gives me a lot, and I'd like to thank cycling the sport, cycling the people involved in the sport, and especially those who gave me the good advice, the good coaches that I was fortunate enough to work with throughout my career from a very young age, right through my entire career. And the people who encouraged me and believed in me were the ones that really made the difference for me to get through to right to the top level of the sport. But most of all, I'd just like to thank the sport for everything, the opportunities that it gave me in life, the people I met, the places I went to, and of course the lessons that I've learned. Sport, I think, my sport, of course, is cycling. Has been my life of lessons and experience. But sport in society, in our community today, I think it's only ever getting more and more important to have this for the young people and future generations. So let's keep contributing to sport, and of course, the best contributions we can do is by participating. Thank you very much.
Cadel Evans, everybody. You must have a massive trophy cabinet at home, do you?
Lots of shelves with things on them.
You've got to add this to it.
It's beautiful. It's really lovely.
Can you thank Helen for being here and for sharing a bit of her experience of her son, Cadel Evans' incredible journey to become a world champion and also to win the Outstanding Achievement Award. Helen Cocks, everybody. Thanks.